Mile 0. It started like any other night, the kind where the road stretches out in front of you like a black ribbon, and the only things keeping you company are static on the radio and the hum of your own engine. I've driven through every kind of night this country can throw at a man, from snow so thick it eats the headlights, to desert heat that makes the asphalt breathe. But this one was different. I picked up the load just before midnight outside of Amarillo. Nothing strange about the pickup. Standard cargo, sealed container, no special handling, no questions asked. Dispatcher said it was urgent, eastbound, 2-state run, all night. The kind of gig I used to love when I was younger, before the back started complaining and the caffeine stopped working like it used to. Stick to the GPS, he said. Shortest route should be smooth. Yeah, should be. It was quiet as I pulled onto the highway. The kind of quiet that doesn't settle. It crawls. The CB was dead. No chatter from other drivers, no weather alerts, no local fuzz. Just the low whine of tires on pavement and that feeling, like the night was watching back. After about an hour, the GPS pinged. Take next right in 300 feet. That's when I first saw it, an off-ramp that didn't look familiar. I've run that route a dozen times, maybe more, and I'm telling you, that turn wasn't there before. The sign was old, metal bent at the corners, barely hanging on the pole. The paint was faded. Just a ghost of letters under rust. I leaned forward, squinting. Looked like it said Route 1 and 13. Never heard of it. Didn't show up on my mental map. And I trust that map more than any screen. But I took the turn. Don't ask me why. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was curious. Maybe some part of me wanted something different. Something to break the rhythm of gas, drive, unload, repeat. Or maybe it wasn't me choosing it all. The ramp curved down into blackness. No overhead lights, no reflectors, no merge lane, just 2-lane blacktop heading into the dark. The second I was on it, I felt the change. The way your gut knows before your brain catches up. I glanced at the GPS again. The screen blinked, then read, recalculating, stay en route. There was no cell signal. Trees started to line the sides of the road. Tall, dense, too close. I didn't recognize the terrain, and I've been through every backwater shortcut between here and Maine. No mile markers, no fences, just that old road and the kind of darkness that feels heavier than it should. Still, I kept driving. The cargo was ticking. Scheduled to meet. The map said this way was 20 minutes faster. My brain said I was being paranoid, but my hands, they had that grip. The kind you get when something's not right and you don't want to admit it. Then I saw it, a sign, barely standing at the edge of the trees, bent and split like lightning had struck it. It read, "Welcome to," that's all, just "Welcome to." The rest was worn away or never written. Beneath it, someone had spray painted in red. Messy, rushed. "Don't stop," I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I needed the sound of my own voice. Something to break the pressure in my ears. I kept driving. The road narrowed a little. The trees pressed in. Fog, low and thin at first, started to roll across the pavement. The kind that hugs your bumper and eats your taillights. I flicked on the high beams, but they didn't help. If anything, the light just bounced off the mist and made everything look worse. 10 miles in, and I hadn't seen another soul. Not a car, not a critter, not even a damn moth in the lights. It was like the world had folded inward, and I was the only thing left moving through it. I thought about turning back, but when I looked in the mirrors, the road behind me wasn't there. Just more trees, more fog, no shoulder to turn on, no brakes in the line. I slowed down, rolled the window halfway, stuck my arm out. Still air, not cold, not warm, just still. Like the road wasn't even breathing. Then a flicker. Up ahead, just for a second, a shape on the road. Too fast to see. Could have been an animal. Could have been a shadow. Could have been nothing. I hit the brakes, gentle. Didn't want the cargo to shift. Leaned forward, squinting through the fog. Nothing. Road was clear again, but when I sat back, I realized something. The GPS wasn't blinking anymore. It was dead, screen off, no power. That's when the headlights caught the next sign. It said, fuel 2 miles ahead, but there was no symbol, no brand, just that, fuel. Like some kind of generic promise. I didn't need gas. I had a half tank. But something told me I was going to stop anyway, and I did. I don't remember deciding to stop. I just remember the glow, that faint amber flicker on the horizon, barely cutting through the fog, like a match lit at the end of a tunnel. After miles of nothing, it pulled at me. You don't question light out here. Not at night. Not when the dark starts whispering. The road curved slightly like it was guiding me toward it. Gentle, deliberate, almost like it knew where I needed to go. And then, out of the trees it appeared. A gas station. Old. Real old. One of those single-pump places with a weathered canopy and a flickering sign above the storefront. Letters half missing, just a crooked gas barely holding on, as if ashamed to still be standing. The building looked like it hadn't been touched since the 60s, maybe earlier. The windows were dusty, yellowed from the inside. I didn't see a soul. I pulled in slow, tires crunching over gravel that didn't belong. The air changed again. Still no wind, no sound. Just the tick of my engine cooling as I killed the ignition. I sat there a moment, listening, hoping to hear something, even if it was bad. But the silence was total. And I swear to God, I started to feel like I wasn't in my truck anymore. Like the air inside the cab didn't match what was outside. Like something had seeped in when I wasn't looking. I opened the door. The gravel felt soft, wrong, like walking on dry cornmeal. I walked slowly toward the pump. It was the kind with the rotating numbers. Analog, clunky. I hadn't seen one of those since I was a kid riding shotgun with my dad. The nozzle was already hanging there, like someone had just finished and walked away. Then I saw him. An old man, standing just on the edge of the canopy's shadow. Tall, but a little bent at the shoulders. Dressed in coveralls. Faded, sun-bleached, or maybe just time-bleached. His face was thin, skin like yellowed parchment, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't smile, didn't frown either, just watched me, like he'd been waiting. Need fuel? He asked. His voice didn't echo, didn't even carry. It just was, like the question had already been in the air, and his lips just gave it shape. I'm good, I said. Half a tank. He nodded, didn't blink. You're on Route 113, he said. Ain't been used in a long time. I looked around. Doesn't show on my GPS, I muttered. Signal dropped a while back. Course it did, he said. GPS can't find what don't want to be found. There was something in the way he said it. Not warning, not threat. More like fact. Like saying rain's wet or the sun sets west. I took a step closer. Where does this road go? I asked. He tilted his head. You'll see. Pause. Then he added, like an afterthought, but not really. But you won't like it. I felt a pressure in my chest. Not fear exactly. Not yet. But a tightening, like a seatbelt clicking in a little too snug. I turned back toward the truck, but not too fast. I wasn't about to spook whatever this was. Thanks for the heads up, I said. He didn't reply. When I climbed back into the cab, I instinctively looked at the dash and froze. The fuel gauge was dropping. Fast. Quarter. Eighth. Almost empty. I hadn't run the engine more than 5 minutes. That wasn't possible. I looked out the window. The man was gone. I started the engine. It cranked hard, like something was resisting. Took 3 tries before it turned over. The headlights flickered once, then steadied. I pulled out fast. Didn't care if I kicked up rocks or rattled the load. I just wanted to be moving again. I told myself it was just some old weirdo messing with my head. Maybe the station had a drain in the line. Maybe I'd misread the gauge. Maybe I was just tired. But even lies need some grip on reality. This didn't have any. Back on the road, the trees closed in tighter. The fog thickened behind me. like it was chasing. But ahead, the path stayed just clear enough, like it wanted me to keep going. I glanced at the dash. The GPS was still dead. Screen black, no signal. Just a glowing route line that had somehow reappeared. One single road stretching ahead, and nothing else. No turns, no detours. Just a digital artery pulsing in the dark. The radio buzzed once, just static, then silence. And that's when I noticed. The mile markers were gone. Not faded, not missing. Gone. Like the road didn't care about distance anymore. Like it wasn't taking me somewhere. It was taking me away from everything I knew. I should have kept driving. Should have ignored the fuel sign. Should have pushed on until the tank hit fumes. But something about that place, it didn't just pull me in. It waited for me. And now I couldn't shake it. Even back on the road, with the trees sliding past and the engine humming low, I still felt him. The old man, the way he looked at me, like I was already a ghost. I tried to shake it off, rolled the window down a little, let in the night air, if you could call it that. It didn't help. The smell was wrong. Not fresh, not pine, not even diesel and road like I was used to. It was old. Dry, like books that hadn't been touched in 100 years. I glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m. I'd only been gone 20 minutes, maybe 30, but it felt like hours. The kind of time that stretches, like you've stepped out of the regular world and into something with its own rules, or none at all. Then I saw it again. The same gas station, same bent sign, same single pump. Same flickering light under the canopy. I hit the brakes hard enough to jolt the straps on the load. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. "No," I whispered. "No, I didn't turn around. I didn't." I hadn't. I was sure of it. I'd stayed straight. Never veered, never U-turned. The road hadn't forked, hadn't offered another option. But here it was, like I'd looped, like the road had doubled back without telling me. I slowed, pulled into the gravel again. My heart beat in my ears, not fast, just loud. Like it was warning me of something I wasn't ready to admit. The old man was still there. Same posture, same coveralls. He wasn't standing where he had been before. He was closer now, near the door of the shop. Arms crossed, head tilted, like he'd expected me to come back all along. He didn't speak this time, didn't wave, just waited. I got out, walked toward him slow, careful. "You playing games with me?" I asked. His eyes didn't leave mine. "You came back," he said. "I never left," I snapped. "Road brought me right back here." "No," he said calmly. "It brought you." That stopped me cold. "It?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" He looked past me, toward the trees. "This place, this road, it don't run on pavement. It runs on memory, on debt. You take a wrong turn out here, it don't forget. It don't forgive." I took a step back. "You're crazy," I muttered. He didn't flinch. "You got family?" he asked suddenly. The question hit harder than I expected. "Yeah," I said. "Ex-wife, grown son. Haven't talked to him in a while." He nodded like he already knew. "Anyone in your family ever disappear?" he asked. I paused. I wasn't going to answer, but I did. "My grandfather," I said. "He was a trucker too. Went missing on a run in '63, never found." The man's eyes narrowed just slightly, like that detail mattered more than it should. "Route 113, he said softly. "Been eating drivers a long time." I didn't like how certain he sounded. "How do I get off it?" I asked. His mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but not a kind one. "You don't," he said. I took another step back. "No," I said. "I'm not playing this game. You're just some old crackpot with a junkyard and a bad sense of humor. You think this is a joke?" he said, voice rising for the first time. "You think you're on a map? You're on a line that was drawn and then erased? And once you're on it, it remembers you." The ground felt unsteady beneath me. I turned and walked back to the truck. Didn't run, not yet. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. I climbed into the cab, slammed the door shut, and stared through the windshield. He was still watching, still waiting. And then I blinked. He was gone, just vanished. No shuffle of footsteps, no creak of the door, just not there. I started the engine, shifted into drive, pushed the pedal harder than I needed to. I wasn't going to stop again, not for him, not for anyone. But as the truck pulled away from that station, for the second time, I caught a glimpse in the side mirror. Someone was sitting in the passenger seat. I slammed the brakes without thinking, tires skidding just enough to jolt the cargo and make the whole trailer groan behind me. I twisted in the seat, heart hammering, breath caught halfway between a curse and a prayer. Empty. The passenger seat was empty. No one there. No door opened, no sound, no shadow. Just the steady whine of the engine idling and the tap of my pulse in my ears. I sat still for a full minute, staring at that seat like it might blink. Nothing. Just worn upholstery, my coffee thermos in the holder, the dashboard light casting a faint orange glow. "I'm losing it," I whispered. "I'm actually..." And then I saw her, standing on the shoulder, just behind the reach of the headlights. A girl, maybe 20, maybe younger, hair long and straight, pale in the beams. She wore a white jacket, not glowing, not theatrical, just white, clean, almost too clean for this road. She wasn't waving, wasn't flagging me down, just standing there, watching, like she'd been there a while. I rolled the window down halfway. "You okay?" I called out. She didn't answer, didn't move, but her eyes were fixed on me. Not scared, not desperate. Calm, cold calm. I leaned across the cab and popped the door open. "Do you need a ride?" She nodded once. Not eager, not shy, just yes. She climbed up slow. Her boots were muddy, laces untied. She moved like someone who'd walked a long, long way. When she settled into the seat, she didn't speak. Just looked straight ahead, hands folded in her lap. I pulled back onto the road, still not sure if I was making the right call, but something about her presence grounded me, like I wasn't alone in the fog anymore. We drove in silence for maybe a mile, maybe more. The road stayed the same, no lights, no signs, just that same narrowing blacktop chewing into the night. Then she spoke, quiet, steady. "You shouldn't be here." Her voice didn't sound frightened, more like she was stating a fact, like the weather or the time. "Yeah," I said. "Figured that out around the second gas station." She turned to look at me then. Her face was pale, not ghost pale, just tired pale, drained. Her eyes were dark, but clear. "You followed the road," she said. "It wants you now." "The hell does that mean?" I asked. "What is this? Some kind of trap? A ghost story come to life?" She didn't blink. "It's not a ghost story. Ghosts leave eventually. This keeps you." My fingers tightened on the wheel. "What is this place?" where I asked. She looked ahead again. Fog thickening. Road still endless. "A loop," she said. "A memory. A mouth." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense." "It's not supposed to," she said. "It's supposed to keep going." We drove on. I checked the GPS out of habit. Still dead. No signal. But the blue line was back again, glowing faint and sickly, pointing forward like a promise. Then she whispered something I almost didn't catch. "Be careful on the bridge." "What bridge?" I asked. No answer. I turned to her, but the seat was empty. No door had opened. No chill wind. No sound. She was just gone. I pulled over, heart in my throat, breathing fast. Opened the passenger door and looked around with a flashlight. Nothing. Not even footprints in the dirt. I climbed back into the cab, slammed the door, locked it, like that could help. And then, up ahead, the fog parted just enough. There it was. The bridge. The bridge didn't look like it belonged to this century. Wooden planks, warped, cracked, water-stained like they'd been there since the Civil War. The kind of structure you see in black and white photographs, usually collapsed in the background. It stretched over a ravine I hadn't seen on any map, hadn't noticed until I was staring right at it. No guardrails, just two narrow lanes, damp boards glinting under the headlights. I idled there a moment, engine grumbling low, truck vibrating under me like it didn't want to go any further either. The fog rolled over the hood in slow, deliberate waves, clinging to the mirrors, slipping between the cracks like fingers. This wasn't just some old bridge. This was the bridge, the one she warned me about. I leaned forward squinting. No signs, no weight limit, no indication it had ever been inspected, let alone approved for an 18-wheeler. The GPS offered no advice, just the faint line continuing forward, across. I should have turned around. I should have waited for daylight, for anything that made sense. But the road behind me wasn't a road anymore, just fog and silence and memory. So I shifted into drive, slow, and eased the truck forward. The first plank groaned, not metaphorically, actually groaned, like it didn't want me there, like it had held too much weight for too long, and this one last insult was too much. I inched forward one axle at a time. The trailer shifted slightly, suspension creaking like bones. Every foot I moved sounded louder than it should have. Tires on wood, the soft rattle of chains, the low moan of timber resisting time. And then I heard it. Voices. Whispers, faint, just under the edge of hearing, coming from the fog, from below, from inside the bridge. At first I thought it was the wind. Then one of them said my name. Not shouted, not even spoken. Breathed. Matthew. My hands froze on the wheel. No one calls me that. Not out here. Not since I was a kid. Matthew? Clearer now. A woman's voice. Familiar. It couldn't be. I slammed the radio knob out of instinct. Nothing but static. Another voice. Different. Male. Hoarse. You're late. The hair on my arm stood straight up. The bridge groaned again. Louder. Almost like a warning. Or a laugh. I pressed the gas. Just enough to keep moving. I didn't care what was under me, what was in the bridge, or what rules this place played by. I just wanted off. Halfway across, the fog got worse. Visibility dropped to maybe 5 feet. My headlights lit up nothing but white. I could barely see the end of the hood. I leaned forward, knuckles white on the wheel, sweat starting to beat on my neck. And then the steering pulled left. Not a lot, just a nudge. Like someone tugged at the wheels with a rope, I corrected, sharp, and the whole trailer jerked. A loud crack snapped under me, like a plank giving out. I didn't stop to check, didn't want to check. Whatever this place was, it wanted me down there. Another whisper, right behind my ear. Too far now. I didn't look. I refused to look. Pedal down, slowly, carefully, until finally the tires hit pavement again. Real pavement. I drove 20 feet before I dared to breathe again. No sound behind me. No collapse. No flash of light. I slowed, glancing in the rear view. The bridge was gone. Just gone. Fog. Trees. Road. No sign it had ever been there. Like I'd crossed something I wasn't supposed to. Something that only appears when it wants you. And once you've crossed it, you're not on your road anymore. You're on theirs. I didn't know how long I drove after the bridge. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour. Time had started to smear like the fog on the windshield, blurry at the edges, slipping through my fingers the moment I tried to hold it. The road ahead didn't change. Same 2 lanes, same trees closing in too close. The only difference now was the silence had shifted. It wasn't empty anymore. It was full, like the night was breathing against the glass, like something was riding with me again, even if I couldn't see it. I kept the radio off, didn't want to hear another whisper, but the quiet, it pressed in, thicker than the fog, heavier than the dark, and eventually, like some part of me needed to know, I reached for the CB, Channel 19, standard trucker line, static, Channel 9, emergency, static, then Channel 1. It shouldn't have worked. No one uses channel 1. But this time, something clicked in. A voice, faint, broken, crackling through like a cassette being eaten by the player. Still out there, another voice layered beneath it, slower, deeper. Keep going. Don't stop. No matter what. I leaned in, hand on the mic. Breaker 19, this is Unit 74. Can anyone hear me? I repeat, this is Unit 74, eastbound on Route 113. I need assistance. The static roared, cut off my words. Then softer now, another voice. Matthew? That name again, my full name. I hadn't said it. Who is this? I snapped, suddenly angry. How the hell do you know my name? Silence. Then one of laughter, soft, sad, like someone who's already given up. He's still trying. They never learn. I gripped the mic tighter. I'm not part of whatever this is. I didn't choose this road. The GPS sent me a beat. Then one voice, clear, strong, almost human again, cut through. You're on the loop now, and the loop remembers. The CB went dead. No crackle, no hiss, just silence. I stared at the unit, heart hammering, throat dry. My hand dropped from the mic like it was too heavy to hold. The road kept unrolling ahead of me, smooth and endless. But something had changed in the mirrors, faint, like shadows caught in motion. I saw faces, not clearly, not all at once. Reflections, impressions, like someone was sitting in the bunk behind me, then gone. Like another pair of eyes blinked just behind my shoulder and vanished. I swerved once, almost drove off the shoulder, had to pull over just to breathe. I killed the engine, let the truck sit, cooling, ticking in the dark. For a minute, just 1 minute, I let myself believe it was over. That I was just tired, that I'd fallen asleep somewhere back at that first gas station, and this was all some dream. A bad loop in the brain from too many sleepless nights and stale coffee. Then I opened the glove compartment, looking for my emergency stash of caffeine pills, and I saw it, a photograph. I didn't put it there. It was old, yellowed, folded twice. I pulled it out, careful. It was a man in a trucker cap, smiling, standing next to a rig that looked damn near identical to mine, and written in shaky ink on the bottom corner, barely legible, was a name, Thomas Miller, 1963, my grandfather. I stared at it, hands trembling. He went missing before I was born, disappeared hauling a night load somewhere in Texas, never found. I looked around the cab like I might see him, like maybe he was still riding with me, but there was no one. Just that damn photo, and the hum of a road that should have ended a long, long time ago. The odometer froze at mile 50. I didn't notice it right away. I'd been too locked into the rhythm of the road. The low hum of the engine, the crunch of tires over cracked pavement, the slow, careful breath I kept forcing in and out of my chest just to stay calm. But somewhere between one stretch of trees and the next, I looked down, and the number hadn't moved. 50, not 50.3, not 51.1, just 50. I tapped the glass with my knuckle. Nothing. It wasn't stuck. It was finished. That's what it felt like. Like the truck had decided quietly that we weren't counting anymore. Like we'd gone as far as distance meant something. Everything beyond this was just static. I slowed to a crawl. The road narrowed again, almost imperceptibly, but enough for the mirrors to brush against low branches now and then. The trees had grown denser, their trunks warped and twisted, like they'd been pulled toward the road by something underground. Their bark was wrong, too dark, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. And then, there it was, a sign, not big, not on a post, just an old rusted street marker nailed to a crooked wooden fence post, almost buried in vines. I passed it slow, squinting through the fog and the beam of my right headlight. Welcome to Ashbrook. Ashbrook. That name hit me in the gut like a memory I didn't know I had. I hit the brakes, gently, brought the truck to a stop just past the sign. Ashbrook was the name of my hometown. Not the one I grew up in, the one my dad talked about, the place he left behind and never visited again. A small town in western Oklahoma that, far as I knew, had dried up and disappeared before I was born. It wasn't supposed to be here, not hundreds of miles east. I climbed out of the cab, flashlight in hand. The air outside felt thick, like walking into a room with no oxygen. Each step felt slow, heavy, like the ground didn't want me moving forward. There was no town. Not that I could see, just trees, mist, a faint outline of a fence running off into the darkness. I walked up to the sign and reached out. The metal was cold, real. Rust flaked under my fingers. This wasn't a hallucination. I turned slowly, shining the light across the woods. Shapes shifted just beyond the beam. Not animals, not wind, just shapes, waiting. Then I saw it, just beyond the fog, on the right side of the road. A mailbox, old metal flag broken. No house around it, just the box on a post like it had grown there. I stepped closer, heart thumping. The name on the side was smeared, but I could still read it. Miller. My last name. My father's. My grandfather's. I stepped back, almost tripped over a tree root. This was not possible. I turned and ran back to the truck. Breath shallow, legs suddenly too long, too slow. Climbed in, slammed the door. Locked it without thinking. The cab was still warm from my body heat, but it felt colder. I reached for the gear shift and stopped. The driver's seat creaked beside me. I wasn't moving. I wasn't touching it, and something was sitting there. I didn't turn my head. Couldn't. My eyes locked forward, every nerve in my body screaming to run, to scream, to do anything but look. But I had to. Slowly, inch by inch, I turned my head toward the seat, and there he was, a man, wearing a trucker cap, jacket zipped to the neck, hands folded calmly in his lap. He looked just like the photo, just like the picture I'd found in the glove box. Older, worn, but the same. My grandfather, Thomas Miller. He didn't speak, didn't smile, just looked at me with eyes that weren't surprised, eyes that said he'd been waiting. I opened my mouth, no sound came out, and then, just as calm as if we were having coffee in a diner off I-40, he said, "It's not the road, Matthew, it's you." The lights flickered, the dashboard went black, and before I could answer, before I could do anything, he was gone. I sat there frozen, breath held so tight in my chest it felt like I might never let it go again. Gone. He was just gone. No sound, no shift of weight in the seat, no closing door or flash of light, like he'd been air all along, like I'd imagined it. But I knew better. I could still feel the warmth where he'd sat. I could still see the faint smudge on the window, a mark that hadn't been there before. A real person leaves a trace, even when they don't belong. I reached for the ignition again, but the truck was already on. Engine humming, dash lit, like nothing had happened, like I'd never stopped, except the odometer still read 50. The GPS screen flickered once, then lit back up. One word. Destination, mile 0. That wasn't part of any route I knew, not on any dispatch, not on any planet. My hands shook as I gripped the wheel. The silence in the cab was so complete, I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. I was losing it, or worse. I was finding something I was never meant to find. I put the truck in drive. The road ahead narrowed again, the trees curling over like ribs around a throat. Fog swallowed the mirrors, no stars above, no moon. Just the truck and this path that didn't exist until I stepped on it. About 2 miles in, maybe more, I saw movement. Not in the woods, in the seat beside me. Slow, deliberate, like something was growing into view, folding in from the edges of the dark. It wasn't my grandfather this time. It was me. Not a mirror, not a hallucination. Me, sitting in the passenger seat. Not identical, not quite, His face was thinner, eyes darker, clothes stained with something I didn't want to identify. His hands were on his knees, calm as still water. But it was my face, my jaw, my broken nose from when I was 19, my damn scar on the chin from slipping on black ice in Utah. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared ahead, as if he was waiting for me to notice what I already knew. I finally found the courage. "What are you?" I asked. He smiled, small, sad. "I'm you," he said. "Or I was, or I will be. Depends on how long you drive." I gripped the wheel tighter, tried not to let the panic bleed into my voice. "This some kind of joke? You a dream? Some kind of echo?" He shook his head. "I'm the version that didn't fight it, the one who stopped asking questions, the one who just kept going." I swallowed hard. "Going where?" He looked at me then, really looked, and I felt like I was staring into a grave I hadn't dug yet. "Mile 0, he said. "The end of the line. The end of you." "No," I whispered. "I'm getting out. I'm turning around." He chuckled low and dry. "There's no turning around. You already crossed the bridge. That was the threshold. You chose this." "I didn't choose anything," I snapped. "The GPS sent me." He leaned in closer, and for a moment I smelled diesel and blood and wet earth. "It doesn't matter how you got here," he said. "It only matters how many times you'll do it again." My knuckles went white on the wheel. "I'm not doing this again. I'm not you." "You will be," he said. "Eventually." And then, like mist blown by a hard wind, he was gone. No sound, no motion, just the empty seat and the soft, persistent hum of the truck. The GPS beeped again. "Approaching mile 0. The road dipped then, a steep descent, like a tunnel carved through the mountain of night itself. Trees bent inward. The fog thickened to paste. The air buzzed in my ears like radio static with no station. The truck started moving faster, though I hadn't touched the pedal. I tried to brake, but nothing responded. I tried to downshift. The gear locked in place, and then I wasn't driving anymore. The truck was, or the road was, and I was just the passenger now. When I opened my eyes, daylight was bleeding through the windshield. Not full sun, not the kind that warms your skin and makes you blink, but a dull, gray morning light, the kind that makes everything look washed out, colorless, like the world had been left in the dryer too long and came out faded. The engine was off. The key was still in the ignition. I sat there for a few seconds, dazed, unsure if I'd slept or blacked out or something worse. My hands were still on the wheel. My foot rested against the brake pedal, though I couldn't remember ever using it. I looked out the side window. I wasn't on the road anymore. I was parked in front of a diner. Not a gas station, not a rest stop, just a small, squat building with a silver and turquoise stripe running along the side, chipped and peeling. Neon sign above the door, not lit. Letters missing, just Ener. I opened the door and stepped out slowly. The air smelled like old newspapers and wet dust. Not fresh, not dead, just paused. No cars in the lot, no people, no wind, just a street. One long, straight road through what might have once been a town. Single-story buildings with their windows covered in yellowed paper. A barber shop, a hardware store, a post office with vines growing out through the broken mailbox slot, but no names, no signs. Like the place had been stripped of its identity, erased. I walked toward the diner door. The bell above it jingled as I stepped inside, a brittle, hollow sound that echoed too long in the silence. Inside, it looked like time had stopped and never restarted. Tables still had napkin holders. Salt shakers still had salt. The coffee machine behind the counter was coated in dust, but there was a cup half full on the far end. No steam, no lip marks, just sitting there, waiting. And then I saw the bulletin board. Cork board near the front, next to a rack of old tourist maps no one had touched in decades. The flyers were curled at the edges, photos browned and curling, missing persons, truckers, travelers, All of them staring out from grainy photos like they'd been caught off guard. Mid-joke, mid-smile, mid-life. Some were old, black and white, others newer. But every one of them had something in common. They looked tired. And then, near the bottom, I saw a face I recognized. Mine. Younger maybe, beard shorter. Same eyes. The caption beneath it read, Matthew Miller, disappeared 2023. Last seen heading east on Route 113. My mouth went dry. I reached out and touched the paper. Real, tacked with a pin, slightly curled at the edge. I stumbled back, heart pounding, head spinning. Then I caught my reflection in the glass of the jukebox against the wall, and I stopped breathing. It was me, but not the me I remembered. Older. My hair was grayer at the temples, the lines around my eyes deeper. My skin faded, like someone had turned the contrast down. I looked like I hadn't slept in years, or like I'd lived through more years than I remembered. I backed away from the glass, looked down at my hands, same hands, but they didn't feel like mine anymore. I ran outside. The street was still empty, the truck still parked where I'd left it. But it wasn't my truck, not exactly. It was older, not by design, but by wear. Rust along the fender that hadn't been there yesterday. A crack in the passenger mirror I didn't remember. I stepped closer. The license plate was gone, just an empty frame, and etched into the metal bumper, faint and jagged, were 2 words. Mile Zero. I turned around, suddenly desperate for another face, another voice, something that made sense. And that's when I saw them. A group of people walking slowly down the center of the street. Men, women, a few kids, all of them pale, eyes sunken, silent. They didn't speak, didn't wave, just walked past me like I wasn't there. I called out, shouted, screamed. Nothing. And then, at the end of the line, I saw her, the girl from the shoulder, same white jacket, same steady, quiet eyes. She looked at me, really looked, and then she said it again. You're almost there. Then they turned the corner and vanished, and I was alone again. Not lost, not stuck, just almost there. It's strange. The moment you realize you're not going back, not just because you're too far in, not because the road's twisted behind you, but because something in you shifts. Something accepts it, like your bones lean into the silence, like your heart starts beating to the rhythm of a place that isn't on any map. That's what Mile Zero felt like. I didn't see a sign when I reached it. No blinking GPS notification, no welcome banner, just a change in the air, like a drop in pressure, like stepping through an invisible curtain. I stood in the middle of the empty street, the diner behind me, the truck fading from my mind like a dream right before waking. The buildings were still. The sky overhead was pale, almost white, like a memory of sunlight instead of the real thing. And up ahead, just past where the asphalt ended in a dirt path winding into trees, I saw it. A man, walking alone, shoulders slightly hunched, a duffel bag in one hand. He looked real, solid, not like the others. His clothes were clean. His boots were loud against the road. Each step clear and heavy. A driver, just like me. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched as he walked past me without a glance. He headed straight for my truck, or the version of it that now sat by the curb like an obedient dog waiting for a new master. He opened the door, threw his bag inside, climbed up into the cab, and then he looked right at me, just for a second. And there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Confusion, recognition, fear. Then the door shut. Engine turned over on the first try. The lights came on. And the GPS, I could see it from where I stood, flashed once, then read, route calculated. Proceed to Mile Zero. And just like that, the truck rolled away, down the road, toward the trees, toward the curve that led, wherever this place led. The same road I had taken, the same mistake, the same loop. I stood there long after it disappeared, long after the sound of the engine faded and the dust settled back to earth. And when I finally turned around, the town was gone. No buildings, no street, no diner. Just a long, flat stretch of highway behind me. Cracked, sun-bleached, endless. I started walking. Where else was there to go? I don't know how long I wandered. Could have been minutes. Could have been years. Time bent strange in that place. It didn't matter. Nothing matters, really, once you're part of it, once you belong. Eventually, I found a sign, standing crooked in the weeds by the shoulder. White letters, flaked with rust. Route 113, no through road. And just beneath it, scratched in by some desperate hand, turn back if you still can. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was too late. It was always too late. And then I heard it, the low rumble of a truck coming down the highway behind me. Fresh tires, new engine, young hands on the wheel. I stepped out toward the edge of the road, lifted one arm, stuck out my thumb. Driver saw me, slowed down, window rolled open. A face leaned out, maybe 30, maybe younger. Curious, kind. "Where you headed, old man?" I smiled. "Nowhere, everywhere, same as always." "Mind if I ride with you a while?" I asked. He shrugged. "Climb in." And just like that, I did. The door shut behind me. The GPS lit up. Calculating route. Mile 0. And we drove on. Like I'd always done. Like I always would. Forever on the road that doesn't exist. Forever the passenger. Forever the story.
Every time I pass through.
Every time I drive through that tunnel in the mountains, someone sits in the passenger seat. I never stop. I never pick anyone up. There's no turnoff for at least 6 miles before or after. No side road, no bus stop. Just the road, the tunnel, and the rain. And every time, without fail, when my wheels hit the concrete lip of that tunnel, I feel it. Weight, shifting, breathing. Someone settling in, right beside me. I don't know when it started. I just know it never stopped. Most folks I tell this to, well, not that I tell many, they think it's sleep deprivation. Long hours, late nights, white lines playing tricks on a tired brain. And maybe they're right. Maybe that would be easier. But here's the thing. I've been driving professionally for 18 years. 18 years of cargo, traffic, motels that smell like bleach and wet carpet. And no one ever sat next to me unless I let them in. Until the tunnel. It's not even a long one. You'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. About 3 minutes to cross at regular speed, maybe less when you're trying to outrun a storm. Like I was that night. The first night. Funny how clearly I remember the wipers squealing, the rain coming down in sheets, the dashboard light making everything feel like I was underwater. And then the tunnel, dark as pitch. No lights inside, just a thin orange glow behind me. Swallowed whole the second I crossed the threshold. I had both hands on the wheel, eyes forward, focused. But I swear to God, halfway in the air changed. Not just cooler, heavier, like the pressure dropped, like someone had opened a door that shouldn't exist. And then the seat creaked, not loudly, just enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I looked, not at the seat itself, just to the side, reflex, peripheral, and I saw it, a shape, not clear, not detailed, but something, someone was there, sitting like they belonged, facing forward, hands on their knees. My first thought? Hitchhiker. Somehow, some way, I must have blacked out and stopped. That was the only possible explanation, right? Except, no, I hadn't stopped. I was still going 60. The rain hadn't let up. The radio was off. The engine hummed steady, and I was alone. I knew that. I was sure of it. So I didn't look again. I didn't speak. I just kept driving, straight through. And when I hit the other side, bright light, open road, wet trees blurring past, I glanced over again. Seat was empty, clean, but not untouched. The seatbelt was twisted like it had been used. like someone had pulled it across their chest and then let it fall. I pulled over, just past the first service ramp. I opened the passenger door, checked the floor, glove box, even looked under the seat. Nothing. No one. But I remember thinking, clear as anything, I don't want to drive back through there again. Not because I was scared. No, not yet. More like, I felt like I'd broken some unspoken rule, crossed into something that didn't belong to the living. I kept that to myself, of course. What would I even say? Hey, I think I picked up a ghost last night. Every time I hit this one tunnel, I feel less alone. Yeah, that's a quick way to lose contracts. But it happened again and again. And every time, that same feeling, that same creak, that same weight. Now I don't even glance over, but I feel it the moment I enter. And that's when I know. I'm not driving alone anymore. Never in that tunnel, never again. The mountain road, it winds like a snake with a grudge. Sharp turns, sudden drops, no guardrails in places there really ought to be. And when it rains, God, when it rains up there, it's like the sky's trying to drown you. That stretch became part of my route back in 2015, when the company started routing loads from Salt Lake over to the northwest corner. Timber country, mill towns, tight mountain lanes. I remember the first trip like I remember my first day behind the wheel. Nervous hands, too much coffee, and eyes that scanned every damn shadow like it had teeth. But that tunnel, back then it was just scenery, just another mark on the map. It sits halfway up a long climb between two logging towns most folks can't even pronounce. No cell signal, no lights, no signs, just the road, split by that black mouth, like the mountain's got a secret it wants to swallow whole. I must have driven through it 100 times without a second thought. In daylight, it's just a brief bit of shade, but at night, that place turns into something else. The first time I felt it, really felt it, wasn't the rain night. That came later. No, the first time something felt off, it was dry, late summer, quiet. My trailer was empty, headed back to base. I was humming along, windows cracked just a little, that high elevation breeze rolling through. And then, halfway through the tunnel, I smelled something. Something like old earth, wet stone. But not just that. There was a hint of smoke, like something burned out long ago and never stopped smoldering. It was faint, just enough to make my brow tighten. I remember checking the vents, sniffing the air like an idiot. And then, I heard the creak again, the same one I'd hear later so many times. Passenger seat, slight shift, like someone leaning forward just a little. Back then I laughed it off, thought maybe it was the frame settling or some loose bolt. I even made a mental note to get the seat checked at the next inspection. But part of me, the part that grew up with ghost stories and backwoods warnings, part of me knew that wasn't it, because the seat didn't just creak, it shifted, as if reacting to weight. I didn't tell anyone, not then, not after. I figured I'd let it slide, one weird moment on a long road, but it started happening more often, only in that tunnel. Sometimes I'd get chills before I even reached it, the kind that start at the base of your skull and spread down your arms like ice water. Other times I'd get there, and the headlights would flicker for just a second as I crossed inside. Not broken, just like something didn't want me seeing too clearly. I stopped opening the window, stopped playing music, stopped doing anything that might distract me. I started holding my breath without meaning to every time I entered that place. It wasn't until my 4th or 5th month running that route that I finally started talking to myself. Not full-on conversations. Not yet. Just a word, a whisper, something to remind myself I was still alone. Okay, nothing there. Just keep driving. That kind of thing. But even then, even trying to sound sane, I didn't look. I never looked directly at the seat again. It was like some deep part of me knew, if I looked, really looked, I might see something I couldn't unsee. And maybe worse, I might recognize it. I started timing the approach, knowing which song on the playlist meant I was 10 minutes out, which tree meant I had 5, which curve in the mountain meant I had 30 seconds before that front bumper crossed into shadow. I treated it like a ritual, like a superstition, like if I followed the routine, windows up, no talking, no music, eyes forward, I'd be okay. But one night I broke the rhythm. It was a Sunday. Rain again. Not heavy, but steady. Like the sky was whispering instead of yelling. I was tired, behind schedule. Hadn't slept right in 2 days. I reached the tunnel and didn't even think. Didn't brace, didn't breathe. Just drove straight in. Sipping coffee with one hand, fumbling with the defroster with the other, and in that moment, that exact second, I felt it again. That shift. The seat moved, and I wasn't ready. My head turned, fast, reflexive, stupid, and I caught it. Just for a moment. Just long enough to know I hadn't imagined it all this time. There was a shape, not a blur, not a trick of the light. A form, human, sitting still, shoulders slumped, head tilted slightly toward the window. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but it was there. I slammed on the gas, shot through the rest of the tunnel like the devil himself was chasing me. I didn't slow down until I hit the straightaway 3 miles out. And when I finally looked again, of course, the seat was empty, but the seatbelt was buckled, not twisted, not hanging, buckled, like someone had taken their time. I pulled over and got out, soaked to the bone in seconds. I stood there by the side of the road, engine running, hazard lights blinking, and I just stared through the rain at that empty cabin. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to turn back, to go home, to quit the job, the route, the mountains, everything. But I didn't, because I already knew, deep down, it wouldn't matter. That tunnel wasn't done with me. Not yet. You know what's worse than seeing something strange? Catching it in the corner of your eye. Just enough to know it was there, but not enough to prove it. That's what started happening. Not every time, but often enough that I stopped pretending it was my imagination. I'd be driving, eyes locked on the road ahead, and just as I passed the halfway mark inside the tunnel, something would flicker on the side window. Not outside, inside. A movement, a blur, and I'd look. Too slow, always too slow, and there'd be nothing there. Nothing except the condensation. See, when it's cold and raining like it usually is up there, the windows fog up easy. Just a light mist, like breath on glass. Except this mist, sometimes it moved, like something had leaned in close. And once, I swear to God, I saw the outline of a face, pressed against the inside of the glass, just long enough to fog it in a perfect oval. Cheek, nose, brow ridge, lips slightly parted, like they were about to say something. And then it was gone. I pulled over. I remember the truck still rolling when I opened the door and stumbled out into the rain. I walked around to the passenger side, heart pounding, feet slipping in the mud. Nothing. No prints. No mark. The window was cold and clean, not a smudge in sight, but I'd seen it, clearer than I'd seen my own reflection that morning. It became a pattern, a slow drip like water wearing down stone. Always just enough to unsettle me, never enough to push me over the edge. Until one night, one damn night, I saw her, not a blur, not a shape, a face, full, pale, eyes fixed straight ahead. She was sitting there, not slumped, not leaning, just sitting upright, as if she'd been there the whole time and only now decided to let me see. Her hair was dark, wet, like she'd been caught in the same storm as me. Her lips were closed, skin pale like porcelain left in a cold attic. But it was her eyes that got me, not angry, not sad, just empty. Like the tunnel, like the mountain itself, had hollowed her out. I didn't scream. Didn't crash. Didn't even blink. I just drove. Every instinct in me said, don't move. Don't look again. Don't even breathe too loud. She stayed there the whole way through. And when I burst out into the daylight, when the truck finally roared free from that black throat of stone, I looked again. Gone. But the fog where her face had been, still there. A perfect oval. Fading slow. That was the night I stopped playing games with myself. I started checking the passenger seat before every drive. I'd open the door, shine a flashlight under the seat, rub my hand across the upholstery like a man searching for crumbs or clues. Nothing. Always nothing. But I could feel her. Not just inside the tunnel anymore. Sometimes when the road was long and the rain steady, I'd feel it again. That shift, that presence. And sometimes, I swear this, I'd find the seatbelt pulled out just a few inches. Just enough to make it look like someone had been about to buckle in. That's when I started covering the passenger seat with my jacket. Something about it, I don't know, made me feel like I had the upper hand. If she showed up, at least she'd be sitting on something I put there. Maybe that sounds crazy. Maybe it is. But it helped me sleep. Until the night I saw the face again. Not in the seat, not in the mirror, in the glass. I was driving past a rest stop, one of those old ones with big plate windows looking out over the forest. It was late, raining hard. I wasn't planning to stop, just coasting past at 50. But lightning flashed. Bright, quick, sharp. And in the reflection of my side window, for the briefest moment, I saw her. Outside, not in the truck, standing under the awning of that rest stop, soaked, still, watching me, the exact same face I'd seen in the tunnel. I slammed the brakes, hard. Gravel spat up, tires skidded. I threw the truck in reverse, heart hammering. My hands shook on the wheel as I backed up the shoulder, aiming the headlights toward the building. Empty. Just the glass. Just the rain. Just the sound of my engine growling like it was angry at me for trying. I didn't get out. I didn't check. I just sat there. Windshield wipers squealing, rain hissing all around me. And I whispered one thing, barely loud enough to hear myself say it. Please, stop. Like she was listening, like she might care. But I knew, even then, she wouldn't. There's something I figured out early. Something I learned the hard way. You can see her. You can feel her. You can even try to pretend she's not there. But what you must never, ever do is talk to her. That's the rule. The only one that matters, and I broke it. Only once. It was maybe a year into running that route. I'd stopped counting how many times I passed through that tunnel by then. Maybe 30, maybe 40. Enough to know the creak of the seat wasn't in my head. Enough to recognize her shape in the corner of my eye. Enough to start expecting her. Like some twisted part of me was getting used to the routine. That night, the rain was different. Harder, meaner. It didn't fall. It slammed, pounding on the cab like fists, like someone was trying to get in. I was on edge before I even left the depot. I had this feeling all day, heavy in my gut, crawling up my spine, like something was going to go wrong. The sky turned dark by 4, the wind kicked up, radio static came and went, even in open country. When I reached the tunnel, I did what I always did. Windows up, wipers on, no music, no talking, just silence. But as soon as I crossed into the shadow, I knew something was different, colder, thicker, like the air had turned into syrup, and the smell, that burnt smell was back, stronger than ever, like a house fire long gone cold. Then came the creak, the shift, the breath. I didn't mean to speak, not at first, it just slipped out. I whispered, barely audible over the rain, "Who are you?" And everything stopped. Not the truck, it was still moving, but the sound, the air, the world. Silent, like the tunnel had swallowed every noise. And then, the engine coughed, just once, then again. Then it died. Dead. My lights flickered once, twice, and vanished. The hum of the motor gave way to total choking darkness. No dashboard glow, no radio static, no nothing. I coasted on momentum for maybe 5 seconds, long enough to feel the terror bloom in my chest like fire. I hit the brakes, hard. The truck skidded, tires screaming on wet pavement, and came to a crooked stop halfway through the tunnel. I sat there in that dead, silent dark, heart pounding in my ears, hands shaking on the wheel. And I felt her turn toward me, slow, deliberate. I didn't look. I didn't breathe. I just whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, not again." And then I heard her voice, right next to my ear. Not loud, not sharp, soft, almost gentle, but empty. Completely, terrifyingly empty. She said, "You broke it." Then the lights flickered back on. Just like that. Click. Everything came roaring to life. Engine humming, dashboard glowing, wipers squeaking, headlights slicing through the mist, but I couldn't move. I sat there drenched in sweat, shaking like I'd stepped out of a fever dream. The seat beside me was empty, but I knew she'd been there. I'd heard her. That's when I made the rule. The rule of silence. No speaking, no asking, no acknowledging. She's not a passenger. She's not even a ghost. She's a warning. And if you talk to her, if you break the line between here and there, she punishes you. And not always right away. Sometimes it's little things. The GPS dropping signal when it shouldn't. A strange noise in the engine you can't explain. Headlights dimming when there's no other cars for miles. And sometimes it's worse. That same month, I heard about a wreck in the tunnel. Another trucker, new guy, night run, rain, slid sideways and flipped. Dead on impact. I asked around, quietly, and someone told me the guy had been talking to himself on the CB right before it happened. Kept saying he saw someone in his mirror. Kept saying she won't answer me. She won't answer me, and I knew. He broke the rule too. Since then, I keep my mouth shut. I grip the wheel. I stare ahead. I do not speak, not even a whisper. And every time I feel her beside me, feel the air shift, feel that silence coil around my ears, I remind myself, don't ask, don't look, don't engage, because once you do, she answers. I used to think the worst part was not knowing, not understanding what I was dealing with, not having a name, a reason, a shape. But I was wrong. The worst part is starting to recognize her. It started with the seat, not the creak, not the weight. No, this was different. I'd gotten used to the idea that she might appear. Her presence, her shape, the fog on the glass. But this time, it wasn't about seeing, it was about feeling. It was a Tuesday run, late October, the kind of night where the rain doesn't fall. It just hangs in the air, cold and invisible. You feel it more than you see it. I was driving light. No trailer this time. Just the cab, the road, and a thermos of coffee that had gone cold before I even left town. The tunnel crept up like it always did. Slow, patient, waiting at the end of that long uphill curve like a mouth with no teeth. Just hunger. I wasn't tense. I wasn't calm either. Just resigned. You can only be terrified for so long before your body gives up and starts calling it routine. She came in halfway through. I didn't hear her, didn't see her. I just felt pressure, not behind me, not beside me, on my arm, light, barely there, but unmistakable. Fingers, resting on my forearm like she was trying to get my attention, but didn't want to scare me. It scared the hell out of me anyway. I didn't move, couldn't move. My whole body locked up like ice. I just stared at the road, at the tunnel walls racing past like whetstone ribs, and I prayed, not to God, not even to her, just to anything that might be listening. And then the hand slid away, slow, smooth, like she was withdrawing into herself. back into silence. When I got out on the other side, I pulled over, shaking, breathing too fast, tasting copper in the back of my throat. And I looked, not at the seat, at the armrest, my armrest. And there, barely visible in the condensation from my own breath, were 5 pale smudges, fingertips, spread just enough to match the size of a woman's hand. Not fresh, not wet, just there. I didn't wipe them off. I left them for the rest of the drive. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I acknowledged them, she'd come back. Maybe I didn't want to forget what it felt like. But I did forget. At least for a while. 2 weeks passed, then 3. No creaks, no breath, no shapes. I thought, stupidly, maybe she'd moved on. And then, just before Thanksgiving, I saw her. Really saw her. Not a blur, not a shape. A face, a woman, in her 30s maybe. Hard to say. Her hair was dark, soaked. Her clothes looked simple. Not modern, not old either. Just plain. But it was her expression that stopped me cold. Not angry, not vengeful, just waiting. Like she'd been patient this whole time. And now she expected me to understand. But I didn't. I stared at her reflection in the window for maybe 10 seconds. Then, against everything I'd promised myself, I looked directly, turned my head, slowly, gently. The seat beside me was empty. No weight, no shadow, no cold breath. But something had changed. I started feeling her before the tunnel, miles before, like she was riding along with me, somewhere between the mirrors and the windshield wipers, just outside my field of vision. And then one night, something even worse happened. I parked for fuel. Small, rural station, not much more than a couple of pumps and a half-lit sign that buzzed like it was full of angry wasps. I went inside, bought coffee, walked back out, and my cab light was on, just the passenger side. I hadn't turned it on. I know that for a fact. And when I opened the door, I froze. The seatbelt was pulled all the way out and buckled, not twisted, not hanging loose, buckled, as if someone had climbed in and made themselves comfortable. I didn't drive right away. I just stood there, one hand on the open door, staring at that damn belt like it was going to move on its own. The rain started again, soft, insistent, like fingers tapping on glass, and I felt it, that old cold, crawling down my neck like wet thread. That was when I said it, almost without meaning to. You don't have to be here. And I regretted it the second it left my mouth, because the truck answered. The radio was silent for the whole ride, flickered to life. A woman's voice, crackling, whispering, not singing, not speaking, breathing, just breathing, slow and steady, right into my ears. I turned off the engine, sat there in the cab, fingers on the keys, trying to convince myself it was static. Just static. But I knew better. She'd heard me. She was always hearing me. And she was never going to leave. Because she was no longer just appearing in that seat. She was taking her place in it. I didn't connect it at first. Not to her, not to the tunnel, not to anything. Just another headline. Another bad night on the road. It happened 8 years ago. Middle of the fall, right before the first freeze. The kind of night where the rain feels like it's changing into sleet midair. I was heading northbound, empty trailer, looking forward to hot coffee and a dry bed. I remember it because I was 10 minutes behind schedule. I'd stopped to check a noise in the axle. Turned out to be nothing, just a loose strap. But it was enough to throw me off. If I'd been on time, maybe I'd have seen it. Maybe I could have stopped. But I didn't. When I got to the tunnel that night, there were already lights. Blue, red, flashing, reflecting off the wet stone like Christmas wrapped in a nightmare. Cops, EMTs, fire crew. They flagged me down, had me wait at the turnout. I killed the engine, watched through the windshield as 2 men in yellow slickers pulled a tarp over something at the tunnel's mouth. Something shaped like a small car, or what was left of one. The rain was pouring sideways, and I remember thinking, not fear, not sadness, just this strange, cold pressure in my chest, like I was seeing something I'd been trying not to remember. Later, I asked a guy I knew in the highway patrol. Thomas Mahoney, solid type, kept quiet about things. He said it was a sedan, black, slid on the curve leading into the tunnel, right where the road angles downhill. Hydroplaned, lost control, went headfirst into a parked fuel rig. The driver died on impact, so did her passenger, a woman and her daughter. The mother was 29, the girl, 7. They weren't supposed to be on that stretch. GPS glitch or something. Wrong turn, took them out of the city and up into the hills, just trying to get back to the highway. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong everything. Thomas Mahoney said the fire wasn't big, but the fumes got them before the flames did. Said the trucker never saw them. Was asleep in the cab when it happened. I remember feeling sick, because I'd been on that stretch. Not long before the crash, I remembered the time on my dash. I remembered passing a car going slow in the rain. 2 people inside. I didn't think anything of it. Just another set of headlights in the mirror. But now, when I lay awake some nights, staring at the ceiling of a cheap motel room, I can hear them. The skid, the crunch, the scream that never came. And worse, I can feel something inside me asking, why didn't you stop? I didn't even look back. Didn't wonder where they were headed. Didn't wonder if they were okay. Just passed them and drove on. The first time I saw her, I mean really saw her, it wasn't long after that crash. At the time, I told myself it wasn't connected. Couldn't be. Too many trucks take that road. Too many accidents every year. Ghost stories are just that. Stories. But deep down, I knew. I knew because of the way she looked at me that night in the tunnel. Not angry, not sorrowful. Just steady. Like she'd been waiting for me to realize it. Like she'd been there the whole time, seatbelt fastened, eyes forward, watching. And maybe that's why she doesn't speak. Maybe that's why she never moves. Because she's waiting. Not for help, not for justice, but for me. To remember. To admit that I could have pulled over. Could have called it in. Could have stopped. I didn't. And now, every time I cross into that tunnel, I wonder if that's the moment she's going to say it. Out loud. You left us. Just 3 words. But I know they'll hit harder than any scream. Because I've heard them already. In the creak of the seat, in the breath on the glass, in the silence that falls like a hammer the moment I pass under that mountain. It's not a haunting, it's a reckoning, and I don't know how many more times I can face it. It didn't happen suddenly. That's what made it worse. It crept in slow, like the way water seeps through concrete. Quiet at first, invisible even, until it's everywhere. The silence used to feel empty. Now, it started to feel crowded. Not loud. No, the tunnel was never loud. But something was changing in the quiet. It wasn't blank anymore. It was listening. And one night, deep into December, I heard her. Not imagined, not a dream, not in my head. I heard her voice. The night started the same as most. Rain, wipers, long stretch of highway behind me, longer one ahead. I hadn't slept much. I never did around then. The tunnel loomed like it always did. Silent, black, breathing cold into the road like it wanted to inhale me whole. But this time, something was different the moment I entered. The sound, or rather, the way it stopped. My tires went quiet. The engine hummed like it was underwater. Even the rain outside, I could still see it on the windshield, but I couldn't hear it. It was like I'd slipped into another layer of the world, one where everything was muted except her. She didn't shout, didn't whisper, just spoke, clear, calm, like she was sitting right beside me, hands folded in her lap, looking straight ahead. She said, "Why didn't you stop?" 5 words, that's it. And yet I felt like the whole cab shook with them. I nearly ran off the road. My hands clenched the wheel so hard I heard my own knuckles pop. My breath caught halfway out, stuck in my throat like a stone. I wanted to answer. God help me, I wanted to say something, but I couldn't, because I knew the answer. I didn't stop because I didn't care. Not enough, anyway. I told myself it wasn't my problem, that someone else would call it in, that the world keeps moving. I told myself a lot of things, but none of them made sense with her voice in my ear. The tunnel kept going, but I couldn't feel time anymore. Couldn't feel distance. Just that question echoing in my chest. Why didn't you stop? It wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad. It was disappointed. That's what gutted me. That soft, tired tone. Like she'd already known the answer and just wanted to hear me admit it. When I came out the other side, I didn't stop right away. I drove for another 20 miles without realizing I'd passed my exit. When I finally pulled off, at a diner I didn't recognize under a buzzing yellow light and a crooked metal sign, I sat in the cab for a full hour. Didn't move, didn't eat. Just sat there, headlights off, engine cooling with little ticks, rain licking the windows like slow fingers. And I kept hearing her voice, over and over, not in the air, not through the radio, inside me. Why didn't you stop? It wasn't a question anymore. It was a sentence. That's when I started dreaming, not about the tunnel, about her, in the seat beside me. Sometimes she'd just sit there looking forward. Other nights, she'd turn her head, just enough for me to see the edge of her face, the line of her jaw, her cheek, her closed lips. And then the voice again, calm, cold, waiting. Where were you going? Or, did you see us? Or, would you stop now? I always woke up sweating, every single time. And the worst part, the part I still don't understand, is that I started to want her to speak again. Not because I was curious, but because silence became unbearable. Once you've heard a voice in the dark and know that it belongs to someone who isn't supposed to be there, silence feels like punishment. It feels like she's choosing not to speak. And every time I passed through the tunnel after that, I held my breath, waiting for her to say something else, to ask something worse. But she didn't. She just sat there, still, present, breathing in the quiet. And I knew she was done asking questions. Now she was waiting for me to say something. I started recording my drives about a month after I heard her voice. Not for proof, not for anyone else, for myself. Because I needed to know, needed to be sure that I wasn't losing it. It wasn't paranoia, not at first. I just wanted something solid, something I could rewind. Pause, scrub back and forth like a detective in a cheap crime show, looking for shadows on grainy film. I mounted a mic just under the dashboard. Small thing, easy to hide. Ran a line to a handheld recorder that I kept in the glove box. Every trip through the mountains, especially the tunnel, I hit record. Just in case. At first it was nothing. Road noise, wipers, the low whine of the engine. I listened to the first 3 or 4 tapes in motel rooms, curled up on stiff blankets, breathing slow as I leaned in. Nothing, no voice, no static, no creak, just me, alone. But on the 5th tape, something changed. It was a routine trip, cold rain, night run. I didn't feel anything out of the ordinary when I drove through the tunnel. No voice, no pressure, no fog, just silence. But the mic heard something I didn't. I was scrubbing through the file, bored, half asleep, and then I heard it. Just 3 words, whispered so faintly I almost missed them. But I knew that voice. Why didn't you? And then silence. Not cut, not noise. Just this eerie, dead stillness, like the world had stopped spinning for a second. I sat up, rewound, played it again. Same place, same breath, same words. I felt my throat tighten. My hands went cold. And I thought, okay, maybe I imagined it. But then 2 minutes later on the same recording, there was something else. Not words this time. Breathing, rhythmic, human. but only on the right channel. As if someone was sitting on the passenger side, breathing gently, steadily, right into the mic. I fast-forwarded. Let the recording play out. Nothing else. No voice, no scream, no crash, just that breathing. And then it stopped. I didn't sleep that night, didn't move from the bed, didn't close my eyes. I just lay there, listening to the rain knock on the windows like it wanted in. The next day, I burned the file onto a thumb drive. I drove back into town and gave it to someone I trusted, someone who knew the road, the job, the hours. Robert Davis, old school driver. Ran heavy rigs for 30 years before his knees gave out. He was the kind of man who didn't scare easy. Grew up around tornadoes, flipped a semi once in a snowstorm and walked away laughing. When I gave him the file, he just raised one eyebrow and said, "You really want to go digging in this kind of dirt, Matthew?" I said I didn't want to, but I had to. He nodded, took the drive, said he'd listen. That was on a Monday. I never heard from him again. Not after that, no calls, no texts, no answers. I stopped by his trailer 3 days later, knocked on the door until my knuckles went raw. Lights were off, curtains drawn, his rig was gone. I asked around. No one had seen him. That night I got a voicemail. No caller ID, no timestamp, just static for 6 seconds, and then a click. I played it 20 times, same every time. And then the recorder, the same one I'd used for every tunnel run, fried. I didn't drop it, didn't unplug it wrong. One morning it just stopped working. Screen cracked from the inside, like pressure had built up and shattered it. I took it as a sign, stopped recording, stopped asking, but it was too late. The sound, her voice, it was already in me now. Sometimes I'd be halfway through a normal stretch of road, miles from the mountain, and I'd hear her again. Not through the mic, not in a dream, just in the corner of my hearing, like she was riding with me all the time now. I don't think she's bound to that tunnel anymore. I think I brought her out, with the recording, with the question, with my need to prove she was real, and maybe she was waiting for that, waiting for someone to give her a way in. Because ever since that night, no matter where I drive, no matter how clear the sky, how straight the road, sometimes when I glance at the seatbelt, it's already pulled out. Just a little, like someone's getting comfortable, settling in for the ride, and sometimes, God help me, I start talking to her again. Quiet, just a word or two, because silence now feels worse. I don't know when I started dreaming about the girl. Maybe it was after the recordings. Maybe it was always there, waiting under the surface, just like everything else. The first time she was standing in the tunnel, not inside the truck, in the road, tiny, barefoot, drenched. She didn't speak. She just looked at me as I passed, head tilted, face unreadable. Her clothes clung to her arms like wet rags. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. She didn't blink, didn't move. And as I came out the other side, I felt something tear loose inside me. Something I didn't know was still tied down. I woke up in the motel bed with my heart slamming in my chest, and a scream caught somewhere behind my teeth. But that wasn't the end of it. The dreams came back. Same girl, same spot. But sometimes she was closer. By the second week, she was standing at the edge of the road, right where the mountain shoulder drops into darkness, still soaked, still silent. And once, she was standing right by the passenger door, hand on the handle, looking up, not at me, at her. I couldn't see the woman's face, not in the dream, just her shadow sitting where she always did. But I knew, somehow in that deep nightmarish way, that they were together, mother and daughter, and they were both still waiting for something or someone. That's when I started digging, not in the supernatural way, not ghost hunters or psychics. I went to the highway patrol, to old reports, public records. I told them I was researching past incidents for safety documentation. for a route reassessment report. They didn't look too close. After a few days, I found the file, the crash, the names. The mother was Catherine Monroe, 29, legal assistant, divorced, one daughter. The girl was Lily Monroe, 7 years old. Lily liked horses, coloring books. There was a picture in the local paper. Old scan, low res, grainy as hell. But even with the blur, I could see her eyes. Big, round, wide open. That face had been in my dreams. For weeks. I couldn't breathe when I saw it. Not for a long time. I printed the article, folded it once, kept it in my wallet. Didn't know why. Maybe some part of me thought if I carried it long enough, it would mean something, like penance. But it didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like weight, like something crawling into the cab with me every time I turned the key. After that, things changed. She, the woman, didn't come as often. But Lily did. She started showing up in reflections, in raindrops on the side mirror, in the rear view. Just a flicker, like she was sitting in the bunk behind me, knees pulled to her chest, watching. Once I left the truck overnight at a diner off the state route, came back in the morning, opened the door, and found a crayon on the passenger seat. Blue. Worn down to a stub. I hadn't carried crayons since I was a kid. I didn't even touch it. Just looked at it for a long time, then picked it up with 2 fingers and dropped it in the glove box like it was burning. But I could still smell it, that waxy, chalky scent. Still there, hours later. Another night, I stopped at a rest area for fuel, walked into the bathroom, washed my face, rain still pounding the roof. When I looked up into the mirror, Lily was behind me, standing in the doorway, not moving, soaking wet. No reflection of footsteps, no sound of the door, just her watching. I turned around so fast I nearly slipped, but there was no one there. No wet prints on the tile, no wind, just my own breathing. I got in the truck and drove for 2 hours without stopping. Didn't blink, didn't breathe deep. And that night, when I finally shut off the engine and closed my eyes, I dreamed again. This time she spoke. Not loud, not sad, just a whisper, like a secret she'd been holding on to all this time. "Where's my mom?" That broke me. I sat up in bed, hands gripping the sheets like they were the edge of a cliff. And I realized something I hadn't let myself admit before. She wasn't asking me a question. She was accusing me. "Where's my mom?" Wasn't a plea for help. It was a demand, like she already knew the answer. And I did too, because the last time I saw that car, I'd looked away. I didn't stop, didn't check, didn't even slow down. I told myself it wasn't my job, that it wasn't my fault. But every time I close my eyes now, I see Lily, not scared, just disappointed. Like I let her down in the worst possible way, and maybe I did. Maybe I still am. I told myself I'd never stop in that tunnel. That was the one rule I had left. After all the others broke, no stopping, no matter what. Because stopping meant opening a door, and I didn't know what would come through. But one night, I did it anyway. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I wanted it to be over. It was a quiet storm that night, the kind that doesn't roar, just whispers. Rain so fine it looked like smoke in the headlights. The kind that slicks the road like oil and softens the edges of everything. I had a full tank, an empty trailer, and too much on my mind. I passed the marker, that cracked yellow reflector at mile 72, and my hands tightened on the wheel. My chest went still. My breath flattened into silence. And when I saw the mouth of the tunnel open up in front of me, like a wound in the mountain, I didn't keep going. I slowed down, 10 miles an hour, then 5, then 1. The wall swallowed me, black stone, condensation running down like tears, headlights barely touching the curve of the road ahead. I rolled forward until I was deep inside, past the halfway point where the air gets thick and cold, and then I stopped. Cut the engine. The truck sighed. metal popping in the silence. Wipers froze mid-sweep. The only sound left was the rain hitting the roof in soft, wet patterns. Like fingers drumming out a rhythm they'd been waiting years to play. And then came the quiet, the real kind. The kind that settles in your bones and makes you feel like you've been buried alive. I sat there, didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. At first, nothing happened. No shift, no breath, no voice. Just darkness pressing in on all sides like the mountain was leaning in to listen. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, wet, bare, walking slowly along the passenger side of the truck. One step, then another, then silence, then another step, closer now, right up beside the door. I didn't look, couldn't. My eyes stared forward, locked on the black that stretched in front of me, endless and pulsing. Then, a sound, the passenger door handle, clicking, once, then again. It didn't open, but something tried, not rough, not frantic, careful, patient, like someone checking to see if it was unlocked. Then, the sound of a seatbelt being pulled, inside, not outside, right next to me. I turned my head just a little, and there it was. The belt stretched across the passenger seat. Click, locked into place. I wasn't breathing anymore. My fingers were shaking on the wheel. My whole body had gone cold, like the blood had drained right out of me. And then, slowly, like a whisper moving through air, I heard it. A voice, not hers, smaller, higher. "I'm cold." It was the girl, Lily. She was here. Not a dream, not a vision, not a memory. Here, sitting beside me, breathing in the same air. And I did the one thing I swore I never would. I looked, I turned my head, slow, careful, and I saw her. A child, thin, pale, hair clinging to her forehead, knees pulled to her chest, bare feet on the vinyl floor. She wasn't staring at me. She was looking at the dash, and she whispered again, "I'm cold." I couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely swallow. I wanted to cry, to scream, to reach out, but I didn't, because in the reflection of the windshield, faint, warped by rain, I saw something else. Her, Catherine Monroe, sitting in the sleeper behind me, watching, her face half lit by the glow of the dash. Eyes open, hands folded, like she was riding along, calmly, waiting for me to do something. And I realized in that moment what they wanted. Not revenge, not fear. They wanted to be remembered, to be seen, to be acknowledged, and maybe to go home. I turned back to the road, put my hand on the key. The rain got louder, like it was building to something, or someone. And then I heard one final sound, from the outside, a knock, not at the passenger door, at mine. Driver's side, 3 slow taps. I didn't look, didn't move, just turned the key. The engine started, everything lit up. The moment I shifted into gear, the knock stopped, and the seat beside me was empty again. No Lily, no Catherine, no seatbelt, no trace, but the truck smelled like old wax and damp cotton, like childhood left out in the rain. And on the dash, I swear to you, there was a handprint, small, faint, pressed into the glass. I didn't wipe it away. I drove with it there, all the way down the mountain. I knew it would be the last time before I even climbed into the cab. There was no warning, no voice, no dream, just a kind of stillness in my chest. Like everything that had been rattling around inside me for years had finally stopped moving. It wasn't peace, not exactly, but it was close. Dispatch had called the night before. A light load, single run, straight through the mountain, back down toward the coast. Route I'd driven 100 times. I said yes without even thinking. Didn't check the weather, didn't check the tires, didn't care. This one wasn't about delivery, it was about returning. I packed light, left most of my gear behind. Didn't even bring a change of clothes. Just one thermos of coffee, the recorder, a new one, The old one still dead in the drawer. And a photograph. It was the article I'd kept in my wallet, folded flat. A reprint I'd made the week before. Catherine and Lily Monroe, blurry, smiling. That smile hurt more than anything else. Like they'd never guessed that the road would end in fire and smoke and silence. I clipped the photo to the dash with a bit of tape, right above the radio, right where I could see it. I left just before dusk. Rain was already coming down. Not hard, but steady. A slow, patient rain that didn't seem to care if it lasted all night. It followed me the whole way. Pavement slick. Trees bowed under the weight of it. Wipers whispering back and forth like they were keeping secrets. For the first time in years, I felt calm. Not because I was safe, because I wasn't running anymore. The road felt familiar. Not just the curves, but the sounds, the smell. That strange wet rock and pine and diesel blend that only lives in mountain air. And when I passed the turnoff before the tunnel, the last gas station for miles, I didn't stop, didn't check the mirrors, didn't count down the miles. I just drove. When the mouth of the tunnel came into view, I flicked on the recorder. The red light blinked once, then stayed solid. I cleared my throat, adjusted the mic, and said, "If you're listening, this is for you." I paused. Took a breath. Then, "I saw the car that night. I saw your headlights. I knew you were going too fast." My voice shook. I let it all come through. I thought someone else would call, thought it wasn't my job, but I knew. The tunnel swallowed the truck in silence. I kept speaking. I didn't stop. I kept driving. I left you there. Both of you. The rain vanished as I passed under the mountain, just like always. But the air felt different this time. Not heavier, not colder. Still, like something was holding its breath. I took one hand off the wheel, let it rest on the passenger seat. Felt the fabric, damp, cold, and then warm, just for a second. I didn't look, didn't need to. I knew she was there, and behind me, the faintest shift of weight, the softest breath. Lily, no creak, no whisper, no shiver, just presence. They were with me, and I kept talking. I should have stopped. I should have helped. "I'm sorry." The word stuck in my throat, but I forced it out. "I'm sorry." Silence. No reply, not this time. But the silence didn't feel cruel. It felt like acceptance. The tunnel kept going, longer than it ever had before, like time itself had stretched, bending around us. And then, light. A glow at the end, soft, blue-white, like the sky just before sunrise. And as the wheels rolled out onto wet pavement, headlights catching the mist like a curtain, I felt it. They were gone. The warmth in the seat faded. The breath behind me vanished. I pulled over, right where the woods start to open up. A little clearing just off the road, where the trees thin out and the gravel crunches under your boots. I cut the engine, sat in the silence. The rain had stopped. No wind, no birds, just me. The ticking of the engine cooling, and the hum in my chest like something old had finally fallen still. I took the photo off the dash, folded it once, slipped it into the pocket over my heart. Then I said the last words I'll ever speak on that road. "You can go now, not to them, to myself, to whatever version of me had been trapped in that tunnel all this time." And as I sat there, eyes closed, head against the window, I thought I heard her voice one last time, not behind me, not beside me, inside. "Thank you." Then nothing. People think hauntings are about fear, about shadows in the dark, blood on the walls, voices behind you in the mirror. But that's not it, not really. Hauntings are about unfinished business, about moments that never ended, about silence that should have been broken and never was. I finished that last ride 2 months ago. Haven't driven the mountain since. I turned in my route card, took my name off the circuit, gave back the keys, didn't give a reason, just said I was done. No one argued. Now I take short runs, Industrial parks, daylight, open roads, nothing that curves, nothing that climbs, nothing with tunnels. But I still feel her sometimes, not in the truck, in the space around me, in the way the rain taps on the windows when I'm parked on the side of the road, staring at nothing, in the way silence settles in just a little too fast, and sometimes, when I'm driving alone, highway stretching out straight and endless, I glance at the passenger seat, and I swear, just for a second, it looks used. The seatbelt slightly twisted, the cushion warm. Nothing dramatic, nothing cruel, just presence. She's not gone, not completely. Maybe she never will be. And I've made peace with that, because sometimes the road doesn't end where it should. Sometimes it just loops, back and back, until you finally see what you missed the first time. Sometimes the passengers stay, even when the ride is over. And sometimes, when you've carried them long enough, they stop whispering. They just sit quietly beside you, watching, listening, waiting for you to speak first. But I don't. Not anymore. I just drive. And when I hit a quiet patch of road, no lights in the mirrors, no other rigs on the line, no rain on the windshield, I hear the echo of my own voice years ago, still playing in my head. Every time I drive through that tunnel in the mountains, someone sits in the passenger seat. And now, I think I know why. Because someone was always there. Long before I saw her, long before the crash, long before the questions. She wasn't chasing me. She was riding with me from the very start. And maybe that's the truth of it all. We don't get haunted by strangers. We get haunted by ourselves, by what we could have done, what we didn't say, what we didn't stop for. So I drive, and I keep the passenger seat clear, just in case, not for her, not even for Lily, but for the part of me that still needs to look, every now and then, and remember someone's always there.
The fading frame.
I was somewhere on Route 19, just past midnight. Rain tapping on the windshield like impatient fingers. Highway humming low under the tires. You know that stretch? Empty gas stations, truck stops with lights half dead. Nothing but the sound of your own engine and whatever's rattling inside your skull. That night I had one of those feelings. Not fear exactly, not yet, but like something was watching from just past the high beams. I'd been on the road 16 hours straight. Should have pulled over, but I just wanted to get a little farther before calling it. I had the heater going low, one hand on the wheel, the other wrapped around a thermos of coffee that was already lukewarm. The only thing keeping me company was that picture on the dash. The one I've always had taped just under the tachometer, like a kind of anchor. Me, Maria, Lillian, and Joshua, our last trip up to the lake house. I remember the exact moment it was taken. Maria's hair blown across her face, Lillian's crooked smile, Joshua holding up that ridiculous plastic sword he wouldn't let go of for 3 straight weeks. We looked happy, maybe happier than we really were, but it still gave me something to hold on to out here. And then, I swear, I looked down at the photo during a slow curve, and Lillian wasn't in it. I blinked, I leaned in closer. There was the lake in the background, the old railing, the same damn faded shirt I was wearing that day. Maria, Joshua, me, clear as day. But the space where Lillian had stood, it was just empty. Not like it had been scratched out or torn. It was just framed perfectly, like she'd never been there at all. At first I thought I was too tired, maybe just zoning out. I turned the dome light on, rubbed at my eyes, even took the photo out of the tape and held it up closer to the dash lights. But it was the same. No Lillian, like she'd been edited out. No trace, no blur, no gap. Just nothing. I laughed. A dry, breathless kind of laugh that died real fast. "I'm losing it," I said out loud, though my voice didn't sound like mine. I set the photo down, face down this time. Didn't want to look at it. I kept driving, told myself I'd look again when I stopped. That maybe it was a different print. Or maybe the heat warped the image. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I was going nuts. But the whole way to the next rest area, I couldn't stop thinking about Lillian, her voice, her laugh, the way she used to count mile markers from the back seat just to stay awake. 346, 347. God, she hated night drives. The lot at the rest stop was almost empty. Just 2 other rigs and a beat-up red Dodge with the hood up. I pulled into the far corner and shut off the engine. Silence rolled in heavy. No rain now, just the wet hiss of the cooling engine and a street lamp buzzing like it had something to confess. I reached for my phone, scrolled through my gallery, searched for anything. A birthday video, that Christmas morning with the cardboard castle, even that stupid TikTok Maria made where Lillian was wearing my sunglasses and pretending to drive the truck. But nothing. No trace of her. Photos that should have had 4 now had 3. Videos were shorter, missing whole parts. Conversations with her voice? Gone. Like she'd been deleted. I called Maria. She picked up after 3 rings, her voice thick with sleep. Edward, is everything okay? I didn't even know how to start. Where's Lillian? I said it straight. No buildup. Silence, then, what do you mean? My throat went dry. I mean, she's not in the photo on the dash, and she's not in any of my videos, and I can't find her voice anywhere in my phone, and I need you to tell me this isn't some kind of sick. Edward, she said, and something in her voice. It wasn't scared, it was careful, like she was talking to someone unwell. We don't have a daughter. I laughed again, that same laugh from before, but now it hurt. Maria, what the hell are you saying? Lillian, our daughter, she's 11. She has the scar on her chin from when she fell off the swing in New Jersey. Edward. Now she sounded like she was crying, or trying not to. We have a son, Joshua. He's 15. There's no one else. I couldn't breathe. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I looked at the photo again, still face down on the seat. I didn't want to pick it up, but I had to. My hand was shaking as I turned it over. Same picture, same smile on Maria's face, same grin from Joshua, same nothing where Lillian had been. I remember her, Maria, I said finally, voice low. I remember everything. The line went quiet. I hung up. I just sat there, hands clenched tight on the wheel, heart thudding so loud I thought it might wake the other drivers in the lot. I didn't know what was real anymore, but I knew one thing. You don't just forget your own child. You don't imagine 11 years of life. You don't remember the way someone smells when they hug you goodnight and then just decide they never existed. Something was wrong, not with me, with the world. And I wasn't going to let it go. I was going to find Lillian, even if I was the only one left who still remembered her name. The next morning, I woke up in the cab with a stiff neck and a sour taste in my mouth, like I'd been chewing on silence all night. Outside, the fog hadn't lifted yet. One of those slow gray dawns where the sun forgets to show up on time. I sat for a minute, staring through the windshield, trying to decide if last night was a dream or just the kind of madness that creeps in when you run too hard for too long. But the photo was still there, still taped to the dash, still missing Lillian. I didn't start the engine right away, just sat there and stared at it, trying to find anything, any trace of her, a reflection, a shadow, a slip-up in whatever had done this. I even pressed my thumb where her face used to be, like I could will her back through skin and memory. I tried to play it smart, rationalize. Maybe it was a bad copy, right? I mean, I could have printed this version wrong. Maybe there was another, the real one, tucked away somewhere in my glove box. So I searched every drawer, every paper, pulled out old logs, receipts, registration slips, even a couple of wrinkled parking tickets I'd been pretending didn't exist. Nothing. But then I found it, It was jammed behind the passenger seat, in that little pocket where crap goes to disappear. A crumpled Polaroid I didn't even remember printing. I unfolded it with shaky fingers, and there we were again. Maria, Joshua, me, no Lillian. But the weirdest part, the part that made my stomach fold into itself, was that there wasn't even a space for her. We weren't just missing her, we were shifted, like we'd always posed that way, like there had never been anyone else to stand between us. I called Maria again. She didn't answer. I tried a few more times before finally giving up. The last message I left was short, just my voice, tired and small. She was real, Maria. She was real. I started driving without thinking. Just pulled out of the lot and pointed the rig west, like my hands knew something my head hadn't caught up to yet. I figured I'd make it to the junction at Route 66 by noon. Get gas, maybe grab a bite. That stretch of road always felt a little haunted anyway. Long, straight lines through nothing. Abandoned motels with their letters falling off, rusted diners with empty parking lots. Just time and heat and asphalt going nowhere. But that morning, it felt different. You ever get that thing where the landscape looks familiar, but not quite right? Like you're seeing a copy of a place you've been 1,000 times, but someone changed just enough to throw you off balance? That's what Route 66 felt like. Same cracked pavement, same burned out billboard about some old cowboy museum, but the colors looked off, too pale, too quiet. The horizon looked like it was holding its breath. And then I stopped at the gas station. One of those old ones, barely a sign out front, just a dusty convenience store, one working pump, and an old guy in a flannel jacket leaning on a cane out front. I'd stopped here before. I knew I had. The place had a cat named Diesel that always sat on the ice machine, and the cashier, his name was Marvin, once helped me jump a dead battery during a snowstorm. So I pulled up, parked the rig, stepped down onto gravel that crunched like bones, and walked inside. But it wasn't Marvin behind the counter. It was a younger guy, maybe 30, bald with glasses and a patchy beard. He looked up like he didn't know what to make of me. "Morning," he said, like he was trying it out for the first time. "Where's Marvin?" I asked. "Who?" "Marvin. Works here. Older guy. Always wears a red cap. Has a limp." The man frowned. "Sir, I've been running this place the last 5 years. Ain't never had anyone named Marvin." I didn't answer, just stared at him for a second, heart beating faster. Then I asked carefully, "You ever seen a little girl come in here? About 11 years old, brown hair, kinda curly, wears this blue hoodie with stars on it." He tilted his head. "You lost somebody?" "Just humor me." He looked around like maybe someone was watching. "I mean, we get kids sometimes, tourists, but I can't say I remember anyone like that." "Sorry." I thanked him and walked out without buying anything. Couldn't bring myself to look back at him. Back in the cab, I sat still for a long time. I felt like I was slipping, like reality was grease on glass. I needed something, anything, one to hold on to. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my brother. "Edward," he answered, same gruff voice as always. "Man, it's been what, 4, 5 years? You okay?" I didn't waste time. "Do you remember Lillian?" There was a pause, a long one. "Who?" "Lillian, my daughter, your niece." "Edward." His voice was careful now, measured. "You have Joshua, that's it. You never had a daughter." My fingers gripped the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. "You were at her 5th birthday, Rick. You brought her that stuffed dragon. She named it Sparky." "That..." He cleared his throat. "I think maybe you've been on the road too long, brother. You need to rest." Click. He hung up, and just like that, another thread snapped. But I remember Lillian's voice calling me Daddy from the doorway. I remember how she used to pretend the bunk in the cab was her spaceship. I remember that she hated green beans and would hide them in her napkin when she thought we weren't looking. I remember the song she made up when she was 3. The one about dragons that lived in refrigerators. So why the hell doesn't anyone else? Why does it feel like I'm the last one who still knows she ever lived? And more than that, why does it feel like something's erasing her? Carefully, deliberately, like pulling a thread from a sweater, one loop at a time, until there's nothing left but a shape in the dust? Route 66 never forgets, but maybe the rest of the world does. And if it can forget Lillian, what else is next? That evening, I pulled off onto a rest stop I didn't recognize, which was strange because I'd run this route for over a decade. It was just past mile marker 212, somewhere in Arizona. No signs leading in, no billboard, no name on the building, just one busted vending machine, a flickering security light, and a bathroom that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since before Joshua was born. I should have kept driving, but my hands were numb from gripping the wheel too tight, and my back was seizing up, and there was this weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. Like if I didn't stop soon, I'd crash into a ditch or into my own thoughts. So I killed the engine and stepped down into the dust. The air smelled like old metal and stale coffee. I stretched, cracked my neck, looked around. Not a soul. No other trucks, no cars. Just me, the humming sodium light, and the deep dark that stretched out beyond it like an ocean. I walked toward the restroom, but something made me glance back, toward the cab, and I swear to God, there was a shadow standing next to my driver's door. Tall, still, human-shaped. I froze, blinked, looked again. Nothing. But I wasn't imagining it. I know what I saw, the shape, the posture, the heaviness of being watched. I walked backward a few steps, never taking my eyes off the rig. Then I said, low under my breath, "If this is some sick joke, it's not funny." Silence. No wind, no bugs, no birds. Just that light buzzing overhead like it was chewing through my thoughts. When I got back to the cab, I pulled open the door and half expected someone to be sitting there. But it was empty, same as I left it. Except the photo, it was back on the dash. I know I'd put it away. I'd shoved it deep in the glove box earlier that afternoon. Couldn't stand to see it anymore. But now it was taped right back where it used to be, like it had never moved. And this time, Joshua was gone. I stared at it, my heart slamming in my ribs. Just me and Maria now. No Lillian. No Joshua. I pressed my fingers against the glass of the frame, breathing hard. "No," I said. "No, no, no, no." I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contact list. Joshua's name wasn't there. I checked my messages. Nothing. No text from him, no photos, no history. It was like I'd never had a son, but I remember him. I remember his first time behind the wheel, gripping it like he was holding on to the earth itself. I remember his cracked voice trying to sound tough when I dropped him off at football camp. I remember the time he broke my taillight trying to park the truck. He was real, and he was gone. I started the engine without thinking, like if I kept moving, I could outrun it. I don't even remember pulling back onto the road, just the rumble of the tires, the throb of the motor, and that damn photo staring up at me, now with half my world erased. I turned on the CB radio just to hear a voice, any voice, static, then a low crackle, then faint. Someone breathing. I leaned in, hand tightening on the dial. "Channel 9, anyone there? Breaker 19, this is Long Runner. Anybody out here tonight?" Static. Then through the fuzz, "They weren't yours." I froze. Never were. I slammed the radio off so hard I thought I cracked the plastic. My palms were slick with sweat, and the wheel felt like it was burning hot. That voice, it was mine. It was my voice, but I hadn't said it. I hadn't touched the mic. I pulled off at the next shoulder, heart hammering so loud it echoed in my ears. I stepped out into the cold and leaned against the trailer, trying to breathe. My mind raced in loops, denial, panic, anger. I checked the side mirrors. That's when I saw it again, a shape, just at the edge of the woods lining the rest area. Same height as before, closer this time. I called out, "Hey!" but it didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't breathe, and when I blinked, it was gone. I climbed back into the cab, locked the doors, started driving again, even though my vision was starting to blur, even though I hadn't slept properly in what felt like days. I needed to find Maria. I needed to ask her, face to face, what she remembered, if she remembered. I needed to see with my own eyes if she still existed, or if I was next. Because if the photo could erase Lillian and then Joshua, then maybe I wasn't far behind. I hit empty just outside Gallup, needle buried past the red line, truck coughing like it was trying to tell me something before giving up. The next gas station blinked into view like a hallucination. One pump, half-lit canopy, plastic bags taped across the broken card reader, and a rusted-out sign that just said fuel in hand-painted red letters. I rolled in on fumes, tires crunching over gravel and dust. It wasn't the kind of place you stopped at unless you had no other choice, and I didn't. I parked next to the only working pump and killed the engine. Silence dropped like a curtain. No radio, no CB, no other cars, just the sound of the cooling engine ticking itself into stillness. That's when I saw her. She stood on the other side of the pump, leaning against the metal pole like she'd been waiting. Not for a ride, not for gas. For me. Long black coat, dark hair pulled back tight, and eyes that didn't blink. I hadn't seen her walk up. She was just suddenly there, like someone pressed unpause on a frame I didn't remember freezing. I stepped out of the cab slowly, leaving the door open behind me. "Evening," I said, voice dry, cautious. She didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at me like she knew something about me I didn't. "You need something?" I asked, forcing casual. "Pump's probably dead, but I got a gas can if you're stranded." "You're late," she said softly. My mouth went dry. "What?" "You should have turned around. 3 exits ago, maybe more." I swallowed. "You been following me?" She tilted her head, and I swear to God. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. Not light, not color. Something behind them, like another set watching from deeper in. Layers. "You're bleeding pieces, Edward," she said. "You keep driving, but there's less of you every mile." I took a step back. "Who the hell are you?" She didn't answer. I looked around. Still no other vehicles. No one at the counter inside. No sound but the soft moan of wind coming off the desert. "You know what's happening to me?" I asked, voice cracking. "The photo. My kids." She finally moved. Slow, deliberate. Walked around the front of the pump, boots crunching the gravel like bones. She stopped just a few feet from me. "You made a deal," she said. I don't remember making any damn deal." "Doesn't mean it didn't happen." Her voice was too calm, too steady. "The things you asked for, you don't always get to choose how they stay. Memory's not a promise, Edward. It's a lease." My legs felt weak. I leaned against the pump, the metal cold through my shirt. "I just want them back," I said. "Lillian, Joshua, I just want..." "Want is dangerous," she whispered. "Want breaks the world." And then she smiled, small, like a knife just under the lip. "You can't fix this on fuel and denial." I blinked and she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, no trace. It's just gone. I stood there, breath held, eyes scanning the empty lot. I ran around the pump, checked the side of the building, even shouted once, "Hey!" But nothing answered. The station lights buzzed overhead. The wind picked up, rattling the loose metal siding. I filled the tank with shaking hands, spilled a little down the side of the truck. When I climbed back in the cab, the photo was waiting for me. Still there. Still only me and Maria. But now, in the far left corner of the picture, barely visible behind my shoulder, was a dark smudge. Not a trick of the light. Not a fingerprint. A shape. A figure, distant and blurred, but watching. I floored it out of there, tires skidding on the gravel as I pulled onto the road and didn't look back. She said I made a deal. She said memory's a lease, but I never signed anything. never agreed to forget my children. And if she thought I was just going to let them vanish, like a loose dream on a bad night, then she didn't know me at all, because I was done waiting for answers to find me. It was time I went looking. I drove through the night like something was chasing me. Maybe it was. The miles peeled away beneath the wheels, but they didn't feel real anymore. Towns flickered past without names. Road signs were bent or blank. The CB radio stayed silent, except for that strange hiss that came and went like breathing. Somewhere past mile marker 287, I caught myself whispering Lillian's name, over and over. Like maybe if I said it enough times, the world would remember her. Or I would, or something would. The photo was still taped to the dash, even though I knew I hadn't put it there this time. I kept glancing at it like a nervous tick, afraid of what might change next. Maria and I, we were all that remained now. But we looked wrong, staged, too perfect. And in the background, that smudge, the shape behind my shoulder, it had moved, just a little. Just enough to notice if you were really paying attention. I cranked the radio, hoping for music, anything to drown out the silence. Nothing but static. Then, a voice, not music, not even a song, just a whisper, soft as breath. Don't look behind you. I slammed the dial off, heart in my throat. I knew better than to turn around, but I still reached for the mirror. Empty cab, of course. I was alone, but I didn't feel alone. I stopped at a truck stop just before dawn, the kind of place with flickering fluorescent lights, old yellowed posters for chili dogs, and a single waitress who looked like she hadn't blinked since the 90s. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I sat down, drank some coffee, and stared at other people, the world might reset itself. I found a booth by the window, ordered black coffee, didn't touch it. I pulled out my phone again, opened the voice recorder app, hit play on the last file, one I didn't remember making. There was silence at first, then static, a low hum, then my voice. Not a message, not narration, just me saying things I couldn't remember ever saying. They weren't yours? My breath caught. You saw them in a dream, Edward. That's all it ever was. And dreams. Dreams have to end. I dropped the phone. It hit the table with a clatter that turned heads. The waitress looked at me, eyes flat and tired, and said, "You okay, hun?" I nodded without meaning it, grabbed the phone, stuffed it into my jacket, tossed a few crumpled bills on the table, and walked out before the coffee could go cold. I got back in the truck, slammed the door, sat for a long moment with my forehead on the wheel, and then without thinking, I looked back at the bunk. I don't know what I expected to see, maybe nothing, maybe everything. But there was a toy, sitting dead center on the bed, a plastic sword, bright blue, the same one Joshua used to carry everywhere when he was little, even slept with it like a teddy bear. I hadn't seen that thing in years, thought we'd thrown it out. I picked it up slowly, fingers shaking. It was warm, not dusty, not old, like it had just been touched. I held it for a long time. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The fear was too thick. It sat in my chest like a stone. That's when the CB crackled again, and I heard the voice. But it wasn't mine this time. It was Joshua's. "Dad?" I slammed my hand down on the receiver. "Joshua! Joshua, is that you?" Static, then faint. "It's cold here." I felt like my heart stopped. My mouth went dry. "Where are you? Talk to me. Please, son, just keep talking. It's getting closer. Joshua!" Silence, then something else. A sound, screaming, long, drawn out, but not his. Not a human scream. I threw the radio to the floor, breathing hard, sweat pouring down my face like I'd just run through a storm. My pulse pounded in my ears. I started driving again. Didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just had to keep moving. Like the road itself was the only thing keeping me alive. Like if I stopped even for a second, whatever was hunting me would crawl through the seams and take the rest. Because now I knew for sure Joshua was out there somewhere. Lillian, too. Not gone, not imaginary, somewhere. And they were screaming. And I was the only one who could hear it. I don't remember making the turn. One moment I was driving north, just past the canyon stretch. And the next, there it was. A narrow off-ramp I'd never seen before. No signs, no arrows, just a sloping lane of cracked pavement disappearing into the dark, like a scar the map forgot. The number burned in my mind before I even saw it. Mile marker 329. I don't know how I remembered it. I just did, like it was waiting for me. The trees were thicker here, taller, pressing in too close. My headlights barely reached past a few dozen feet, and everything beyond that was swallowed whole by black. The air changed too. Got colder, heavier, like it didn't want to be breathed. I pulled the truck off to the side, stepped out into the crunch of dead leaves and gravel. The wind had died completely. No sound, just the ticking of my engine and the low pulse of blood in my ears. And then I saw the sign. It was crooked, nailed into a tree. Looked like it'd been there 100 years. The paint was peeling and warped, but I could still read it. Everything has a price. I don't know why, but I walked toward it, left the truck running behind me like a lifeline I might have to scramble back to. I followed an old path into the woods, barely more than a trail, more instinct than road. And the farther I went, the more the trees bent inward, like they were listening. I walked until the sound of the engine was gone, until I was completely alone. And then I saw the table. It was just there in the middle of a clearing, an old wooden table, round, smooth, empty, except for one thing, a photograph, the same one. Me, Maria, no kids, but this time there was a note tucked under the corner. Yellowed, torn, handwritten in ink so faded I had to tilt it toward the moonlight. You asked for another chance. You asked to start over. This is the cost. My hand started to shake. I sat down, slowly, like if I moved too fast, the whole scene would vanish. My voice cracked when I spoke. I never asked for this, but I did. Somewhere inside I knew. I remembered the night, faint and twisted, like a dream I wasn't ready to wake from, 12 years ago. Winter. The highway was a sheet of ice. Maria was in the hospital with pneumonia. Lillian had just learned how to spell her name. Joshua was still afraid of the dark. And I was behind the wheel, drunk on overtime and guilt, halfway through a storm run I never should have taken. I'd said it, out loud, into the dark, right around this very mile marker. I'd give anything to start over. That was it. I hadn't meant it. Not really. But something had heard me. Something that knew how to listen when the world turned quiet enough. Something that knew what I meant, even when I didn't. And now here I was, alone, with a perfect photograph of a perfect life. No mistakes, no pain, no memories of a family I didn't deserve. Just Maria, still smiling, still mine, but not whole. I picked up the photo, my fingers trembling, held it in the dark, and for a second, just a second, I saw them. Reflections in the glass. Lillian sitting in the grass behind us, drawing with sticks. Joshua leaning on the truck, rolling his eyes at one of my old jokes. Their faces so clear I could almost touch them. But when I blinked, gone, and the woods behind me shifted. Branches groaned, leaves whispered. The air moved like breath on my neck. You have to choose, a voice said. I turned. She was there again. The woman in the black coat, standing in the trees, just past the edge of the light. You can keep this world, she said. The clean one, the easy one, the one where you never failed anyone. Or, my voice cracked, or you take them back, but you carry the weight, the pain, the memories, all of it, forever. I looked down at the photo, at my own smile, so hollow now I could barely stand to see it. Were they even real? I whispered. You made them real, she said. With love, with time, with sacrifice. They were yours, Edward. That's why they hurt. The wind picked up. The trees shuddered. I stood there, caught between the two paths, perfect peace or broken truth. And then I made the only choice I could. I turned my back on the table, on the lie, and walked into the dark. I drove until the sun came up, or what passed for it. Pale light spilled across the cracked highway like someone poured milk over glass. The road stretched ahead like it had no end, but I knew exactly where I was going. The lake house, that photo, the one that kept changing, it was taken there. I remembered now, every detail. Lillian feeding ducks off the dock, Joshua skipping rocks, Maria in the hammock with a book she never finished. That place held something, a beginning, maybe an end. Either way, it was waiting. I hadn't been there in over a decade. The road to it was mostly gravel and roots, hidden behind a bend no GPS ever found. But I remembered it. My hands drove the way like they had a mind of their own. Turn here, slow down there. Through the trees, past the old tire swing, down a path that barely existed anymore. And then there it was, still standing. Crooked, weather-worn, swallowed up by vines and time, but standing. I killed the engine and stepped out. The air was heavy, not with heat or moisture, with memory, with the weight of things unsaid. It pressed into my skin, thick and old and cold. I walked up to the front door, my boots crunching on the moss-covered steps. The handle turned without resistance. The door creaked open like it had been waiting too. Inside, the house smelled like dust and pine needles, furniture under sheets, the ghost of family laughter in the walls. I stepped into the living room and stopped cold. There above the fireplace was the same photo, framed and hanging like it always had been. But this version, this one was wrong in a way I couldn't explain. It was just me, only me, not even Maria. I walked closer, breath hitching. The dock in the background was gone. The trees were different. Even the sky looked faded, like someone had wiped a wet cloth over the world and called it clean. I reached up, touched the frame. It was ice cold. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, upstairs. Not heavy, not dragging. Small, light, children. My knees almost buckled. "Lillian?" I said, barely a whisper. Then louder. "Joshua?" Nothing, just silence, but not empty silence, the kind that's waiting. I moved slow, every step up the staircase screaming under my boots. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered. Shadows clung to the corners like they were afraid of the light. Then a door, half open, faint yellow light spilling through the gap. I pushed it open, and there they were, Lillian and Joshua, sitting on the old carpet, cross-legged, facing away from me, still, silent. "Kids," I breathed. "Oh my God." I dropped to my knees, reached out, but didn't touch. I was afraid they'd vanish if I blinked, like everything else. "Lillian, Joshua, please, talk to me." Lillian turned her head, just a little. Her voice was soft. "Daddy?" Tears burned in my eyes. Yes, baby, I'm here. I'm here now." Joshua didn't move, didn't speak. And then, from the shadows near the closet, I heard another voice. "You shouldn't be here." I turned sharply. She stood in the corner. The woman in black. No coat this time. Just darkness draped around her like it belonged. "You made your choice, Edward. You walked away from the table." "I chose them," I said. My voice was firm now. "I chose the truth. And truth has teeth." She stepped forward. The air around her rippled, like heat off asphalt. Only cold. So cold. "You remember now, don't you?" she asked. "What you did, what you didn't do." I clenched my fists. "I remember working too much. I remember missing birthdays. I remember being gone when they needed me." She nodded. "And when you begged for a second chance, the world answered. It gave you a picture-perfect life, but you knew it wasn't real." "I want them back," I said. "The mess, the pain, the truth. I don't care if it breaks me. It already is." She raised a hand. The room twisted, the walls blurred, the floor groaned, light bent sideways. The kids faded, not vanishing, but being pulled, like threads in the wind. "No!" I shouted, lunging forward, grabbing at nothing. "Don't take them!" Lillian looked at me, eyes wide. "Daddy, I'm scared!" And then, blackness, like someone closed the world. I woke up on the floor of the lake house, hardwood against my cheek, dust in my throat. Cold, silent, heavy air pressing down on me like a memory too large to carry. For a moment, I didn't know where I was, or who I was. Then it all came back in a rush. Lillian's voice, Joshua's stillness, the woman in black, the way the room twisted like a broken dream. I sat up slow. Every joint ached. My head pounded like I'd been in a fight with something much bigger than me, and lost. The house was quiet now, not peaceful, hollow. I got to my feet, swaying, and looked around. They were gone. The kids, the woman. Even the photo over the fireplace, gone. In its place, a mirror hung crooked. And in the reflection, I wasn't alone. Two figures stood behind me. I turned fast, heart in my throat. But no one was there, just me. But in the mirror, they stayed. Lillian, holding her plastic lunchbox in both hands. Joshua, arms crossed, trying not to cry. And me in the middle, looking older, tired, like a man who knew he'd gone too far and maybe wouldn't come back. Then I saw it, on the table near the mirror. 2 old keys, rusty, heavy, real. One was marked with a faded letter M, the other had no mark at all, and next to them, a piece of paper, folded once, yellowed with age. I picked it up, unfolded it with fingers that didn't feel like mine. It read, "One for the world you wanted, one for the world you left behind. Only one opens the door. Choose." I stood there a long time, staring at those keys. The silence pressed in tighter. The house seemed to breathe. In, out, like it was waiting too. I thought about everything that had happened, what I'd seen, what I'd lost, what I'd forgotten. The truth is, I'd made the trade long before I ever met her. Every night I stayed on the road, every birthday I missed, every bedtime story I didn't read, every "I'll be home soon" that turned into another lie. That was the deal. I gave up pieces of them for miles, and the miles took them. Now I had 2 keys. One would take me back to the life I remembered. Clean, quiet, no family, no failure, no pain. The other, maybe, would bring me back to them, the real them, with all the mess and heartache and love and weight that came with it. I picked up the key with the letter M, Maria. Maybe that was a sign. Maybe it meant something. Maybe it didn't. I stared at it, then at the blank one. Both felt heavy. Both felt final. I closed my eyes. Thought of Lillian's laugh. High, bright, full of mischief. Thought of Joshua, sitting in the front seat of the rig, asking if he could honk the horn just once. Thought of Maria, curled up on the porch with a mug in her hands, watching the kids run circles around each other. I opened my eyes, took a deep breath, and chose. The key slid into the door at the back of the room, a door I didn't remember ever being there. It turned with a soft, mechanical click, like a clock resetting. And then, nothing, just the sound of the latch, just the sound of my own breath, and the feeling that once I stepped through, there'd be no going back. I stepped through the door. There was no flash of light, no swirl of smoke, no dramatic wind howling around me like in a movie. Just cold air and silence. Then the world came back in layers. Gravel crunching under boots, diesel in the air, the familiar groan of a resting engine. I was standing beside my rig, my truck, parked at some forgotten truck stop, sky overhead thick with clouds, the horizon glowing faint with morning light. But something was wrong. It was too quiet. I walked toward the cab, my breath visible even though the air wasn't that cold. The windshield was streaked with dirt, the mirrors fogged. It looked like it hadn't been touched in weeks. I climbed up, grabbed the handle, pulled the door open, Empty. No jacket on the seat, no thermos in the holder, no CB mic dangling from its hook, no photo taped to the dash. Nothing. Not even me. I leaned in, looked around. Every trace of me was gone. Like no one had ever driven this truck. Like it had been left behind by a ghost. I slid into the seat slowly, hands on the wheel. It didn't feel right. Everything was cold, lifeless. I turned the key. The engine coughed, then rumbled to life. Not smooth, not like it used to. Like it had been sitting for a long time. Like it had forgotten me. I checked the radio, no channels. The screen glitched, a smear of static, then went dark. I sat there for a while, engine idling, unsure what I'd come back to. Had I made the right choice? Was this the world I'd remembered, or the one I feared? Then after a knock on the door, I jumped, turned fast. A guy stood outside, late 30s, wearing a faded flannel. Ball cap, clipboard in hand. Another driver maybe, maybe not. I opened the window halfway. "You all right, man?" he asked. "You've been sitting here a while. A lot of folks thought you might have left it." "What do you mean?" I asked. "This rig," he said, tapping the door with his knuckles. "It's been parked here over a week. We were about to report it." "I just got here," I said, but even I didn't believe it. He raised an eyebrow. "Right." He hesitated, then glanced past me, toward the dash. "Huh," he muttered. "That's weird." "What is?" He pointed at the empty photo frame lying face down by the gear stick. I hadn't noticed it. "There was a picture there," he said. "Couple days ago when I passed through. I remember it 'cause I swear I saw a little girl waving in it. Gave me the creeps." My chest locked up. "What did she look like?" He squinted. "Hard to say. Brown hair, curly, big grin, like she knew something I didn't." He tapped the door again. "Anyway, just wanted to check. You take care, all right?" He turned and walked off. I watched him go, watched until he faded into the gray, until I couldn't hear his boots anymore. Then I picked up the photo frame. It was blank, no backing, no glass, just an empty wooden rectangle, like a window to nothing. But for a moment, just one, I thought I saw something in the reflection. A flash of a girl in the back seat, eyes wide, smile soft, gone before I could blink. The CB crackled, sudden and sharp. I grabbed it, heart hammering. Silence, then a voice. Faint, almost too soft to hear. "Daddy?" And then just static.